What is going on, everybody? This is another episode of Coordinated Chaos. On this episode, we'll be recapping what happened in Week 11 of the NFL football season, as well as we're going to do a Thursday night football preview. Then I'm going to do my favorite bet against the spread for the weekend as well. And let me go ahead and start this episode off apologizing to a few of our listeners, obviously, here. I did not get last week's pod done. I had a little bit of a voice issue. I was a little bit hoarse. My voice was kind of gone from going to the Eagles-Cowboys game the week before, and I just couldn't get it done. My throat just kept drying up, so I apologize for anybody that was looking forward to that. But let's go ahead and hop into what happened in Week 11. We're going to start with the Thursday night football game, Eagles versus Commanders. Obviously, big game for the Eagles, big game for me. I was really excited about seeing what the Eagles had for the Commanders, what the Commanders had for the Eagles. Like, it was a big deal coming into this one. It was like whoever wins this kind of takes full control of the NFC East. And it was at home in Philadelphia, so that was a leg up there for the Eagles at the very least. And this was a very interesting game. The first half of this game was close. It was pretty ugly. Both quarterbacks did not play well in this game. Both defenses kind of had like a beat on what they wanted to do in the passing game a little bit. And then finally in the second half, more or less, the Eagles just kept being persistent and resilient with the run game. And eventually the O-line just kept leaning on the Commanders' defensive line and front seven in general. And Saquon eventually breaks off two big runs for touchdowns and kind of opens the football game up. And the Eagles essentially kind of like dominate them for the rest of the game there. The Commanders did kind of get a garbage time touchdown at the very end there, which kind of saved some people's fantasy days if you had Jaden Daniels or Zach Ertz for that matter, which I actually had on the bench at that point, and I was so mad that happened. But then it was actually kind of funny because I had Taysom Hill in there, and I was like, this is like the 1 week I bench Zach Ertz and he goes crazy. And then I was like, oh, well, that worked out for me. Yeah. But either way, yeah, Eagles really from the jump of this game kind of dominated it. Like, if you like look at the way that Jaden Daniels was kind of like stymied in the game in general, I think the Eagles' defense, their secondary, was able to really control what the Commanders wanted to do. And pretty much the only production that they had passing the football in the first half was like swing passes out to Austin Eckler, who would get the ball and make somebody miss and maybe get a first down doing that. But for the most part, the run game was pretty stifled, and the pass game, the deep passing game, was pretty stifled. And yeah, I mean, just really the Eagles' defense was the story of the game. They didn't let Jaden Daniels do anything. And then the run game, obviously, the Eagles, who has been obviously kind of like Saquon Barkley has kind of been carrying the Eagles for the past few weeks on this giant, like win streak that the Eagles been on.
Yeah, I think Saquon right now is the MVP for the Eagles, and it's not even close.
I agree.
I agree. I mean, to their credit, they saw him go out like on the free agent, and they were like, okay, we really like because
this could be the cherry on top putting us over the edge.
Yeah, because he's a game changer. Like, he's someone that can win you games, and so that from that standpoint, that was good. But I've always thought at some point everyone was going to figure out the Commanders, because Jaden Daniels is good, but he's a rookie.
Yep.
Their offense is decent. The defense is not very good.
Yeah, it's just okay. I feel like schematically they have some nice stuff. Dan Quinn knows how to use his players, but at the end of the day, like, sometimes the talent just isn't fully there.
And so the Commanders are solid, and it was still a good win for the Eagles. But I personally am not really on the Eagles train. I never really have been.
It's understandable.
Like, I've just like, they've figured out how to win cleaner, but I think when it comes down to it, when they meet a team with as much talent as them, they will lose because of coaching.
It's possible. Yeah, no, I still personally don't feel comfortable with Nick Sirianni in a close game. Yeah. Like, I still think there's a chance he can make a really dumb decision. So I agree with you there. I just think, like, right now, like you said, I feel like talent. When you said somebody that matches their talent, I think the only team in the NFC that matches their talent is the Lions, and they are currently the 1 seed. Eagles are the 2 seed right now. So the Eagles are looking forward to potentially having the Detroit Lions slip up here and there. But realistically, down the stretch, the Eagles have a little bit tougher of a schedule, if you were to ask me. I don't think that the Lions have as much of a chance to, like, kind of slip up as even just like the Eagles do. Like, the Eagles' next 2 games are Rams, like, in L.A., which is not going to be a super easy game. I still expect the Eagles to win that ball game.
Matthew Stafford can win a game, though.
Matthew Stafford's balling right now.
And they got the receivers back.
My only thing there is just, like, he's kind of been like that guy. He's kind of been the statue in the pocket. He's not. I think there's, like, a crazy stat out there that this year he's scrambled 0 times, like
Yeah,
literally
that's
0
insane.
times. So like he's just back there, and it's like if you can get, especially with the Eagles and how good they have been in coverage this season, if they can continue to have that really good coverage and almost get those coverage sacks where like he's back there in the pocket and he's holding the ball because nobody's open, and then eventually, a Jalen Carter is going to make a right guard, miss, and he's going to get up and collapse the pocket. And so I expect the Eagles to win a game against the Rams like that, because I just don't think that a quarterback that can't really move off of his spot is going to be able to do it consistently against the Eagles defense right now. And I think the offense is good enough to beat up on the Rams defense, and it's just kind of middle of the pack, if not like a little bit less than average. So, but yeah, I just think like you said there, I think the Eagles and the Detroit Lions are clearly the 1 and 2 of the division, and there's like some other teams that are like kind of feisty. Obviously, the Eagles lost to the Falcons earlier in the season, but they've kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit as of late as well. So
I'm not a Jalen Hurts fan. I've never been like franchise QB. Like,
I think he's really streaky, and I think he can get hot and he can get cold. And I think the problem with what's happening this year a little bit, and like he's had really good games the last few weeks, like when it comes to like the Bengals game and early on in the Jacksonville game, he was balling. Even late in the Jacksonville game, he was playing really well. But I feel like because they've gone to this very run-heavy and almost run-first offense, he's like one of those basketball players that kind of needs to see the ball go in the hoop before he starts to really get into a rhythm. And I think they need to get him a little bit more of like easy throws at the beginning of the game to like get the ball out of his hands, get it in his receiver's hands, let them do some stuff there. And then that's when like he opens up and he feels like he's like, okay, I'm feeling it now. I'm accurate. I'm going to start ripping it. And I feel like the problem with that is like the way that the Eagles offense has evolved, it's just been like, we run the ball now until we need to pass the ball, and then it's like Jalen Hurts now has the ball, and he has to make a play on 3rd and 7, and it's like you're not always going to convert that. And so like he's going to be a little bit less efficient than he probably would be if it was more of a super balanced offense. But like maybe it's just game plan wise, like what they're planning on doing. I almost feel like this Rams game is going to be a Jalen Hurts, like he's going to have to throw the ball type of game. And I feel like he can do it against that defense. So, but yeah, I think it comes down to game plan and the way the offense is set up. But I understand the hesitancy with Jalen Hurts because, like, it just doesn't look like some of the other quarterbacks. It doesn't look like a Josh Allen. No, it doesn't look like a Pat Mahomes. Because Jalen Hurts doesn't have the arm those two guys do. He does a lot of work with his legs. But he gets himself out of jams that way. But
even legs-wise, I wouldn't be like, man, that guy's kind of like Lamar.
He's definitely not as elusive as Lamar.
It's just like if you take all the good quarterbacks' great qualities, give them to him, and then just make them all a bit worse.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Like he can do most of it, but there's nothing I'm like, wow.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I think right now too, and like I was even clamoring for this early on in the season whenever he was having all those turnover issues.
Yeah.
I think he's gotten to the point now where he understands the position he's in, and it's like just don't make the play that can lose you the game.
Yeah.
And so I think he's taking sacks that he normally wouldn't because he's holding the ball and making sure he's not going to fumble it. He's making sure he doesn't throw an errant pick because I think he realizes as long as he doesn't give away possessions, the Eagles' offense is going to get enough possessions, and the defense is good enough now for them to win games that way.
Yeah, well, because like we talked about the Lions earlier, I feel like they're in the exact same boat of Goff has realized, like, he threw 5 picks and they won. Yeah. Like, I feel like he's realized, like, all right, this team is really talented. Yeah. My job is to kind of just, like...
manage.
Yeah, make sure everything goes decently to plan.
Correct. Yeah, so, I think both of those quarterbacks kind of in the exact same position.
Yeah, the teams just are so, like, similar.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, that was a lot on the Eagles and Commanders. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the Packers versus Bears, another rivalry game of the weekend. Crazy game here. Bears looked great, actually, in this game for the majority of it. Looked better than they have a lot of this season. Shane Waldron obviously out now as offensive coordinator. This was the first game without him. And Caleb Williams looked better. He was running with the ball more. I think they kind of emphasized, like, look, if there's not something open, just take off and run. Yeah. Which I think that was a thing that helped Jalen Hurts too. Is just like I think they want him to get out of the pocket as well, and just like if you don't see the first or second read, just get up out of there. And I think that helped Caleb Williams a lot here because he was in the first few weeks of the season, he was really dancing around back there, and he would take really long and bad sacks and be like 2nd and 18, and you're way behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
But this one, like, they finally got into a little bit of a rhythm offensively. DeAndre Swift got a big touchdown in this game. Roschon Johnson also got more involved in this game as well. I think he's going to be a big part of that offense where he's kind of like the hammer. He's going to be able to get some of that short yardage stuff, the goal line stuff. But eventually the Packers started making some plays. I'm a little like Jordan Love's still making bad decisions with the football. It's just like, I don't know. Maybe he just isn't going to like kick that habit this year, but he may. But at the end of the day, they make just enough plays to kind of get themselves back in this football game. They take a 1-point lead at the end there. Chicago drives down for a game-winning field goal, like a 46-yarder, and it gets blocked, of course, just like last week with the Broncos and the Chiefs. And really unfortunate for the Bears. Like everything was like pointing.
Tough loss.
Yeah, it was just so many positive things for the Bears, and then for that to happen, it kind of stunk. But it is what it is. Packers win a division matchup.
Yeah, the Packers they're an odd team because they have talent and like they kind of have the quarterback to help it, and their defense is solid, but they just like I feel like there's no like superstar. Like they don't have like on defense I would say they do, but on offense there's no like, oh, this is our guy. Even if there's no Mahomes, there's no Justin Jefferson, there's no like Saquon.
Yeah, on defense they got like Rashawn Gary, who's a really good edge. They have Xavier McKinney, Jair Alexander, who I think he got hurt in this game, if I'm not mistaken, or the game before. Now he's kind of in and out of lineup. He's a little bit injury prone, but when he's playing, he's an all-pro.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that offense, it could potentially get to the point where it's hot like it did last year. But like it's just, I don't know. Jordan Love is a little bit hard to trust at this point right now, but I think he has all the talent in the world, and their weapons are good enough for them to be. I mean, Josh Jacobs, I think, in the playoffs will be a big deal for them because they can really run the ball with him.
Dare I make the comparison between Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love?
I mean, Jordan Love has a better arm, and I think decision-making wise, I don't know who,
it's both pretty bad.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, maybe Hurts has kind of learned because he hasn't thrown like a bad interception in a few weeks here. I mean, he had one, I think, against. Wait, no, he hasn't. No, he's had one in a while actually. But either way, just Jordan Love in general. Yeah, knock on wood, actually, for sure. But Jordan Love just like he makes one like, and it's not based on like. I feel like it's with him. It's like he's not. It's not like that he's not reading the field right. It's that like he thinks he can fit a ball into a hole that he like because because his arm is so strong, and he's just like, I can do this. Yeah. And it's just like, no, dude, you're in the NFL. Yeah. You're not at Utah State anymore. But yeah. So Packers get a big win there. Let's move on to Lions versus Jags. This one we're not gonna have to stay very long on this one. Lions scored 52 points in this game. Jags are completely a disaster. Yeah. Doug Peterson probably won't have a job very soon. No. The Lions just don't like. They're just blowing people out, and like they don't care to stop scoring, which is just like almost like even more like psychotic and scary for them offensively. They got everybody involved in this game. Literally, almost every position player got to score. Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brock Wright, because Sam Laporta didn't play in this game. So, like, everybody got in on this. Jared Goff had a crazy day. Obviously, threw a ton of touchdowns. But, just the Lions just proved that they're just a juggernaut at this point.
Yeah, I saw a meme, and it was remember the Titans scene where the coach, the defensive coordinator, is like, we will blitz all night, and it's when they're up like 50-6 in the fourth quarter, and it's Dan Campbell like, we will not stop, and you're like, they're kind of just flexing their guns now.
Oh,
it's
for
like,
sure.
Look what we can do, and you can't do anything about it.
I think they want to, like, whenever like a team comes up on the schedule, they want the opposing team to look at their statistics and say, holy crap, because they're like point differential, they're like plus 140 or something right now. Like, they've outscored people so much this season that it's like you go into that game and you're game planning for the Detroit Lions, you're like, how do we expect to stop this?
Well, and then it's like if you look at who you're supposed to stop, you're like, all right, they got Laporta, they got St. Brown, they got Gibbs, They also have Montgomery.
Yeah.
Okay, they might throw it to Sue. Like, I don't even understand, like, where you start. And their defense, it's not like they just have some bummy defense.
No, yeah,
like
it's a talented and physical, like, they'll hit you in the
and
mouth.
they just lost their best player, and they're still.
Yep. And they added Zadarius Smith, who looked decent in this game. He did get hurt for a second, but he came back in the game, so it was fine. But Lions just look good. Really, that's pretty much all we can say.
Best team in the NFC.
By far, right now.
So far, cleanest.
Yeah, absolutely. They look the best for sure. Rams versus Patriots. This one, really not going to hit too much on this one as well either. Rams just get a nice bounce back win after losing to the Dolphins. Like, that was like, for me, I thought the Rams would, like, after they got Puka and Cooper back, they would kind of go on this run and take over the NFC West. And then when they lost to the Dolphins, I was like, maybe that was kind of fluky. Like, I don't know. But I'm glad they kind of had this, like, a little bit of a bounce back here, and they beat the Patriots, which isn't the greatest competition in the world. But Drake May's been feisty as of late, and, like, he's been making plays, actually. And, like, it's almost like the perfect amount of, like, risk and reward type plays, because at the end of the day, like, he throws for, like, a decent amount of yards. He throws for multiple touchdowns, and then he throws, like, a game-sealing pick, and it's, like, perfect. It's like, that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted you to show us that, like, you can do all this really cool stuff and then also still lose the game because we need a top pick in the draft. So, Rams get back on the winning train here. They got the Eagles next. I'm hoping they lose, obviously, to that one. But I still like the Rams to potentially compete for the NFC West. Yeah,
the Rams are solid because they have the experience and they also have the talent. And the Patriots, I mean, Drake May, it's kind of funny because I'm a UNC fan, so I love Drake May. But I feel like if you switch to him and Caleb Williams, the Bears would be so much better, personally.
Maybe.
I think he would do better in that spot. But I also think the Patriots stink. It's total rebuild mode.
Oh,
so
for
it's
sure.
Just like they're
giving Drake May the green light to do whatever he wants right now.
As long as he doesn't hurt himself, they don't care.
Essentially, yeah. All right, next game, Ravens versus Steelers. Another big-time AFC North matchup. This one was interesting. Very low scoring, obviously. AFC North slugfest is kind of what we've come to expect with that one. What was it, 18-16? I think that was the final. Just a weird game.
Not a touchdown for the Steelers.
That's the second time this season they've won without scoring an offensive touchdown.
Boswell's outscoring Kelsey in fantasy football.
Yes,
you're like,
it's crazy. Hello? Yeah, Boswell's been
balling. And Najee Harris.
Yeah,
that's his own running back.
Yeah, that's super wild.
Yeah.
Steelers just get the job done. They really just didn't allow Lamar to really make any plays in this game. Every single time I saw him kind of escape the pocket and look to go downfield, he just overthrew a receiver or there was he was kind of throwing into triple coverage, so he didn't really throw the ball where he kind of needed it to because he was afraid that if his receiver doesn't catch it,
it
gets picked off, and it's he doesn't want to go through that. So they really stifled the run game. They made Derrick Henry fumble the football, which he hadn't done in a while.
480-something touches.
Yeah, just it was a crazy game. Steelers, personally, so the Steelers are on the Eagles schedule, and I don't know. I don't fear the Steelers still. There's something about it where I just feel because I think the thing is, with a team like the Ravens, where you kind of expect them to win against a game against the Steelers, because I feel like the Steelers are just kind of this middling team. They're definitely competitive and they're good. Their defense is good. Their offense can make plays, but it's not a world-beating offense.
No.
But with a team like the Ravens, I think their problem is how bad that secondary is. That a middling type offense like the Steelers can make plays on them. And it's if the defense is good enough, then it really balances the scales there, because then it's the Ravens can't get explosive on the offensive side of the ball as well. So, personally, as an Eagles fan, I feel how good the Eagles defense is playing right now and how good the Eagles offense can be potentially. They don't scare me at the end of the schedule, but the Steelers are perfectly competitive. They're going to be in every single game they play in all season long. It looks I don't think they're ever going to get blown out this season. But the Ravens, they definitely have a problem with their secondary, and it's showing to be rearing its ugly head at the worst time.
Well, I think Russell Wilson's kind of figured out the Jalen Hurts and Jared Goff, like, man, like, the team around me is good.
Yeah, just
like,
don't completely blow it.
like,
He tried to in this game.
Yeah.
He threw that pick in the end zone,
Yeah.
which was just like he was trying to get it to Darnell Washington, and he threw it a little too high, and it was just like, man, that was ugly. But don't do that.
Yeah, he realized, like, they drove down and literally did not score, and 18 points is decent. Like, that's almost 3 touchdowns. But, like, so, I mean, he's figured that out, and Harris is decent, and their defense is really good.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the Ravens, I don't know, they have some things to figure out, and Derrick Henry still scored, but he had like maybe 60 yards or something like.
He didn't have a crazy
day.
day.
They didn't let him break one that he normally ends up breaking.
Yeah, they kept they stayed consistent with stopping it all the way through the fourth quarter, which not every team's able to do. Usually somebody like you said, he breaks one eventually.
Takes one missed tackle and then he gets like 30 yards.
Exactly.
And then your defense
so,
is good.
Yeah, Steelers get a big-time division win there. They take over in the AFC North as the division leaders right now, so that'll be interesting going down the end of the season. Next game, Broncos versus Falcons. This was interesting. Falcons get blown out by the Broncos.
Destroyed.
Bo Nix looks like Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. He's like, that screen game right now is working very well for the Broncos, but also they're throwing the ball downfield and making big time explosive plays too.
Sutton's he got kind of overlooked because his quarterbacks were always so bad, and
correct.
Javonte Williams is a pretty good running back too.
Yeah, it was a lot of fantasy managers were upset with that. A lot of people thought that Audric Estime was going to take over. There was some inkling from Sean Payton that he was going to give him a little bit more run, and then Javonte Williams got most of it, and it was they were what in the world happened there? But yeah, I mean, they got a decent stable of running backs there now, and like I said, Sean Payton's really cooking up the screen game between the running backs and the wide receivers.
What's their They're 6-4.
6. What? All right, so it's week 11. So what are they? 7-4?
Something like that.
Something like that.
They also had the Chiefs. They had the
they had the Chiefs on the ropes. They had the Chiefs beaten essentially, and they just a blocked field goal into the game.
It's just weird that they're a playoff team.
Yeah,
now.
I think the Broncos defense really is a really tough unit to go against right now. And so if you're not on your P's and Q's against them, you can have a down game.
Star of that defense,
Pat Surtain.
Yeah,
he's nasty. He's disgusting.
Yeah,
and they have some pretty decent edges. Nick Benito is a pretty good edge. But yeah, their secondary is pretty solid. Jaquan McMillan's a pretty good player out there too.
Well, what I've started to figure out is teams that have either one really good cornerback or safety, just literally one. Yeah, because you look at Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's disgusting.
They can shut down a quarter of the field.
Yeah,
and then if you have a weak link in your secondary, it's easier to just shade coverage that direction if need be. Yeah,
because even when you look back at the Seahawks when they were disgusting.
Yeah,
you'd basically put Richard Sherman on a receiver and the guys just can't do anything.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing with the Legion of Boom there. That secondary was so good with Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman,
and Bobby Wagner.
So on the other side of Richard Sherman was Byron Maxwell.
Yeah,
and he was just okay.
Yeah.
And the thing was, it didn't matter because, even if, you started to, you're not throwing at Richard Sherman in his prime. So the thing was, throw it towards Byron Maxwell, and then you got,
Cam Chancellor,
Earl Thomas coming over the top or somebody. Yeah. Or Cam Chancellor just cleaning somebody out.
Then you overthrow him, hospital ball, bow.
Yeah, and you're out of the game.
Yeah.
And then what was funny about that was the Eagles in the Chip Kelly era, they were like, oh, Byron Maxwell, Legion of Boom, he must be a great player. And then they signed him to a huge deal, and he was literally the worst quarterback we've ever signed in free agency. And, we have a history of doing some really bad cornerback signings in free agency. And so it was a disaster there, but like you said, one guy can really change the dynamic of an entire secondary.
It helps the whole other side.
Yeah,
because you're well, at least we have him over there, so they're not going over there.
Yeah, crazy. But yeah, Broncos destroyed the Falcons.
Terrible.
Yeah, Falcons are they're
I don't
so
know
weird.
what happened.
I don't know. And somebody said it. I was listening to a podcast, so I'm not going to take credit for this, but I can't remember who it was. I think it was Chris Sims. I'm going to give him credit for it. He said that, based on what he said, I was like, man, that makes so much sense based on the way I've watched games and, watched, certain things, on Red Zone, the few things I catch of the Falcons for the most part. He's like, their offense just isn't, explosive, like down the field explosive. He said it's a whole lot of like in cuts and like crossers.
It gets to like deep, almost deep middle. Like London catches a lot of like deep posts, shallow, like
it's like So Drake London's not a speed guy. He's a possession receiver, 50-50 kind of jump ball kind of guy. Darnell Mooney's a little bit more of a speed guy, but I don't think he's as fast as he once was when he was in back in like the Chicago days, like his like rookie year. He was an absolute like burner, but now he's not exactly that, and he's getting a little bit older, as well as the fact that he's a little bit banged up right now. Yeah. And maybe just the offense isn't really designed to go like deep downfield. And I don't know if they want Kirk to throw it deep down the field either. And so it's more of like a surgical, like we'll like matriculate down the field type of passing game. And when you do that against a Broncos team that like that's what they want you to do is like you're not gonna like there's no threat of you guys going deep. Then like we'll keep everything in front of us, and then we'll just rally and tackle, and then you're gonna really have to like be like perfect in order to score a touchdown. Yeah,
the Falcons, I think their best offensive player is Bijan, and I feel like people forget the first 2 weeks they lost their center and both guards. Yeah, and so it's like people
have been in and out of the line offensive line all year.
Their O-line at the beginning, it was like, oh wow, like one of the better units, and then it was just like leg, ankle, and then just that whole.
And they're probably, even if like some of them come back, which I think they have, like they're still dealing with those injuries at a certain level. Yeah. And so like it might not be something that's going to keep them out of a game anymore, but like at the very least it's still there in the back of their mind that like my ankle is kind of still hurting or whatever it may be. So I think that's definitely a part of it for the Falcons. The Falcons don't have a pass rush right now.
No.
Matt Judon is their best pass rusher, and he's old, and like he just hasn't been that productive this season. Yeah. So tough scene there for the Atlanta Falcons, even though they are still first in the NFC South.
They are, and they beat the Eagles.
Dude, Saquon, dude, that still bothers me now because like we would be tied with the Detroit Lions right now for first seed in the NFC if Saquon just catches a quick little flat route.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
So crazy that just like one thing is just
small
butterfly
plays,
effect. Yeah. But whatever. Seahawks versus 49ers. This game, obviously another rivalry game, NFC West. 49ers hadn't lost to the Seahawks in like 3 years, so naturally I bet them money line, and then they lost, which destroyed a nice little money line parlay I had going there. So that kind of stunk. I mean, it was $5 to win like $35. So like at the end of the day, I'm not that mad about it, but still,
Geno Smith running it in with 12 seconds left.
Running it at the very end. I was like, because it was like very like the time was clicking and I don't think they had any timeouts left, and so like Geno had to make a play, and he was just like he saw an opening, was just like I'm gonna try.
Well, and then once you decide to run, like you gotta go.
Yeah, you can't like people closing in on you. So Seahawks get a big W against the 49ers. Big division rivalry. Obviously, all three of those teams at the bottom of that division are 5-5. I guess you can call it the bottom. I don't really know how to describe the otherwise. You got the Cardinals technically at the top of that division, and the rest of the competition there in the NFC West is all 5-5. The 49ers, unfortunately, even with Christian McCaffrey back, still don't look that great. I don't know. I don't know how you have looked at it and if you have any perspective on it, but man, Christian McCaffrey does not look as explosive as he did last year, and I think he's maybe favoring those Achilles a little bit more, and he's a little bit more afraid to push the limits. And maybe by the end of the season, as like it kind of rolls around, he gets a little bit more comfortable with the way his body's feeling. He'll like kind of open it up a little bit more, but right now it just does not look like the same Christian McCaffrey.
No, he's playing almost kind of like an Aaron Rodgers, like low key. Like he's like just not wanting to
push the limits.
Yeah, he doesn't want to see what happens. Because I mean, like the dude had to go to Germany because he had like Achilles
tendonitis.
And both. And I'm sure there's part of him like he loves football, but there's part of him that's like I don't really want to ruin my legs.
Yeah, I don't want both my Achilles to pop, and then I have to. I can't even literally can't even get up to pee anymore. Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't want to have to rehab for an entire year for 2 legs.
Yeah, so. And also it sounds bad, but like last year it was like, well, the 49ers like probably going to go to the Super Bowl. Like now it's like. Do I give it all?
Yeah, like last year, it would be worth it for him to put it all on the lines. But right now, when you're 500 this late in the season, it's like, man, I don't even know if there's a chance they could turn it around and get to a wild card spot. I don't see them completely turning around and winning the division. I don't know if the Cardinals necessarily hang on to win the division, but like at the end of the day, they're at the top right now. I still think the Rams come back and win the division. But Seahawks beat the 49ers, which, maybe is not that big of a feat anymore. No. But all those teams are just kind of like middling right now, and it's just it's an interesting division for sure.
It's just a bunch of talented teams that have had injuries and haven't figured out who they are yet.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not wrong there. All right, let's move on to the next one, Chiefs versus Bills. This was like the game of the week for everybody. Everybody's curious to see how this goes for like the umpteenth time in a row. Like, and it went exactly how it went the last however many years in a row now. Yep. The Bills in the regular season beat the Chiefs in the regular season. And then the flip or the script gets flipped in the playoffs.
Yep.
And so like for me, like I couldn't even really get into the game.
No.
I personally, like, I know, like, everybody loves this because it's Allen versus Mahomes, and it's the two probably best quarterbacks in all of football going head-to-head. But, like, for me, like, it's just, like, we've seen this so many times that, like, we know it doesn't matter. We know, like, the result in the regular season doesn't matter that much. The only reason it matters even a little bit in this matchup in this year is because there's a potential for the Bills to overtake the Chiefs as the 1 seed in the AFC, because obviously Chiefs were undefeated. They stayed undefeated, obviously, as long as they could have. They pretty much lock up the AFC number 1 seed. But now, since the tiebreaker is owned by the Bills, there's a chance they slide in there if the Chiefs slip up a little bit more. So that's the biggest reason why it mattered this season in the regular season. But just for the grand scheme of things, I don't care that much, because I think at the end of the day in the playoffs, we're going to really find out who these teams are, who these quarterbacks are, who the head coaches are, and who always gets the upper hand, and it always seems to be the Chiefs. So I'll see it when I believe it in the playoffs, when the Bills can take over the Chiefs. And it's not always just like Allen is a lesser than Mahomes, or Mahomes is always better than Allen. And I personally think Mahomes is a better player. But it's just, for me, in totality, what the Chiefs have is just better than what the Bills have in totality, even if they did just win this game in the regular season. I'm at the end of the day in the playoffs, I'm going to trust Steve Spagnuolo to cook up a ridiculous defensive scheme and just screw somebody over. I'm going to trust that Chris Jones is going to make a play at some point. I'm going to trust that Mahomes is going to make a play. Travis Kelce's going to get motivated in the playoffs because he wants to three-peat. I think they're just kind of going through the motions in the regular season right now, and they still started out 9-0, which is just crazy. Probably should have lost last week against the Broncos, but it's just really, for me, I don't care about any of this until the playoffs, because just the Chiefs kind of earned the benefit of the doubt there.
Well, the script was kind of written. It was Chiefs undefeated. Now they got to go to Buffalo. Ooh.
Yeah.
And then everyone kind of knew they're going to lose. That's just probably going to happen. And kudos to Josh Allen and company. They beat them.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's they've beat them in the playoffs 3 or 4 years in a row.
Yeah, and the Bills always beat them in the regular season. So it's this is the exact same way it's been going.
It's whoop-de-hoo, but that doesn't if they get them in the playoffs, it's big change.
Exactly.
But until they do that, it's But the Bills, they figured out, the Bills and the Bengals are the only two teams that are if we just cover and then shadow Kelsey, their offense is really stoppable.
Yeah, because they just don't have the weapons right. Last year, you had Rashee Rice coming onto the scene and becoming a big deal in offense.
Kind of was a man too.
Now they will be getting Pacheco back very soon, supposedly. So, but we just don't know how quickly he's going to get back to 100. I know he'll be on the field, he'll be playing, but we don't know if that's 100% Isaiah Pacheco.
That's true.
We don't know if it's going to take a few games or if it's not even going to be this season that he's he's going to be 100% himself. And so we just don't know if that's going to be as big of an impact as we maybe anticipated to be. But either way, that'll be a big deal, because Kareem Hunt he's been serviceable, but he's not been great. He's not a guy that's going to rip off 40 yards. No. He's just not that guy anymore. He's just older, and he's just more of a put his head down and get you 7-8 yards, and that when there's a hole there, and when there's not, he's going to get you 0 yards. It just is what it is. So the Chiefs are just like I said, I think they're just kind of going through the motions right now. They're waiting for the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think. I'm sure they wanted to win, but I think it's kind of we're 9-1. Oh well, we lost.
Yeah, so Amari Cooper is not exactly integrated into the offense just yet. Obviously, he's been dealing with like this wrist injury that kind of cropped up after he got traded there. Had that first game where he got a touchdown. He actually had a decent amount of yards in this last game. But now they have like a plethora of different weapons that all have kind of different roles. Amari Cooper's in there now. Curtis Samuel's back from injury. Khalil Shakir is a good player. Dalton Kincaid actually did play in this game against the Chiefs, so he'll come back into the lineup and he'll be a solid player at the very least. They already have Dawson Knox there, so James Cook's been playing better than he's played pretty much all season long as well. So the Bills have room to get better, as there's more chemistry there between all of the players that kind of have been injured in and out of the lineup all season long. And then the defense is just okay. Like, I don't think they're a world-beating defensive team. I think they're sound. They're pretty disciplined.
Get the job done.
Yeah, they can just get the job done at the very least, and they're pretty decent at being opportunistic when it comes to like getting turnovers and stuff like that. So I think they're just like a smart unit in general. But the Bills can get better. They get a big win here against the Chiefs. Let's move on to Chargers versus Bengals. This was the Sunday Night Football game. This one was crazy. We really haven't talked about the Chargers all season long. And realistically, like, that's kind of more my fault than anything. Like, I just didn't really feel like they were much of a contender. Like, for most of the season, I felt like they dropped some games here and there that I thought they probably should win. I was like, is it the same old Chargers? Like, is Jim Harbaugh really that big of a deal? Like, is he making that much of a difference? But they have since kind of gone on a little bit of a run here, and they've beaten some teams that are serviceable competition. And it's like, okay, maybe the Chargers are pretty solid.
I think they've won 4, 5, or 6 in a row. They've put a streak together that's pretty good. And they always had the talent, even when it was Keenan Allen, Eckler, and Herbert. It was always it was there. And Joey?
Yeah, Joey Bosa.
Joey, the talent was there, but now Harbaugh, I feel gives new life to okay, now we have a real coach that
sure. There's a real culture there now.
Yeah.
The Staley guy was not very good. I feel like he really screwed up the franchise for even more. They chargered even harder than they used to charger in the past. When he was the head coach. It was crazy.
True. Yeah. So I am glad that. I mean, I liked Herbert. I always felt kind of bad. He was always in kind of a tough spot.
Oh, for sure.
And so it's good that they're winning some games. And I don't know their run now kind of feels like the Jaguars a few years ago, where you're they might make the playoffs.
They'll make the playoffs. They could potentially get an upset win round one, but past that, you don't see much happening. I agree with that sentiment there. Honestly, they just don't have the talent right now. They have Quentin Johnston on the outside. They got Josh Palmer. Lad McConkey stepped up and played well as a rookie at the very least. J.K. Dobbins is having a comeback player of the year type bid right now. But he's kind of been a little bit less efficient as the season's gone on. So maybe the whole injury thing's catching up to him a little bit, to the point where he's just not as conditioned as he once was, because he's dealt with so many injuries over the past few years. He's not exactly used to a full workload in the NFL anymore. And maybe next year his body will be kind of more used to that as he stays healthy for a whole year. But they got enough talent. The defense is playing out of their mind right now. Jesse Minter, guy that came over from Michigan with Jim Harbaugh, has been calling a very good defense there. They have the players on the defensive side to make things happen, and Derwin James is having another very good year.
He's a baller.
Joey Bosa, when he's in the lineup and healthy, he's still a solid player. Obviously, even a guy like Dan Henley, who's a middle linebacker with them, is a solid player. But finally we kind of talk about the Chargers a little bit here, and I think they, like you said, they can slip into the playoffs here. They're not going to win the division. Obviously, the Chiefs are going to win that division, so they're going to have to go for a wild card bid, and I think they can make a little bit of noise, but I don't expect them to be full-blown Super Bowl contenders at this point. But the Bengals drop another really disappointing one. They have lost so many games, close games at the end, even with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and the weapons going crazy. It's just the defense keeps letting them down, and Joe Burrow, you can see the frustration in his face after every game.
Yeah, the defense is absolutely astronomically so bad.
It's so bad.
But Burrow, I feel so bad because him and Chase are having not MVP years, but best, pretty
career
close.
years.
Yeah,
for sure.
Some solid numbers where you're man, if the team around them can just figure it out, and they just can't.
Yeah, literally last week, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, I mean, if you had either one of them in fantasy, you won the week, more or less, especially Jamar Chase. I had him in fantasy, and it happened on Thursday,
points,
obviously, and In our league, the way scoring went, it was 57. And it was like the week's over.
30 yards and 2 touchdowns on like 10 catches.
Yeah,
like,
and in our league, we have this thing with like bonus bucks. So if one of your wide receivers goes over 200, you get an extra $10 for that week.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting pretty on Thursday night. I was like, dude, this is great. Like I'm gonna win the week no matter what, basically, as well as I've already made a little bit of money.
I got the notification. I got 70-yard touchdown thrown by Burrow and 69. I was like, I know both of those went to Chase.
Yeah, especially last week when T. Higgins was not in the lineup. And this
that ain't
week
going
he
to
was.
anyone else.
Yeah, no, it's not. Nobody else is making that explosive of a play for the Bengals other than Jamar Chase. So
but they're out of slip ups. Like they have to win out and get kind of lucky.
Yeah, they're gonna have to get. So it'll probably be down to like the last week of the season. They're gonna have to win. They're gonna need help from X amount of teams to lose, and this team's gonna have to win, and it's gonna be
a win, a tie.
They're gonna need 8 different things to happen in order for them to get in the playoffs at this point. But offensively, you don't want to face them. If they end up being the 7th seed and the 2 seed has to play them, you're like, daggone.
Yeah, this is not.
I know the defense is susceptible, but you have an offensive day and the defense makes a couple plays, like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Can win a game.
They'll win a game for sure. So it could be a scary thing for a 2 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's go on to the Thursday Night Football preview. We got Steelers versus Browns in this one. The Steelers are favored by 3.5 points. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
I don't know. The Browns are an interesting. I love the memes of Jameis Winston.
Yeah,
I mean he is just a hilarious human.
He's chucking the ball right now and not caring. And they're throwing the ball more than they did when Deshaun Watson was in there, which makes sense because he stunk. But at the end of the day, I thought when Nick Chubb got back in there, they're we're going to be run first, blah, blah, blah. But, Nick Chubb's just not 100%, which is to be expected. He tore, his knee completely up last year. It's Jameis Winston's been fun to watch.
I think the Steelers should probably be able to handle this one. The defense should be able to make the plays, and their offense, Russell Wilson's kind of just doing what he needs to do to make things happen.
I would feel comfortable betting this money line. The 3.5 points kind of scares me a little bit just because of a division matchup, and Jameis Winston's such a wild card that it's just
he could have a Mahomes day where you're like, who is this?
Yeah, I mean he could literally throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and they maybe they don't win, but they cover that 3 it's like a field goal thing. Chris Boswell saves the day for the 3rd game in a row or whatever.
Exactly.
It's just I don't know. I wouldn't touch this personally. This game with a 300-foot pole,
especially they're each on a short week.
Both on a short week, and the playbooks kind of get tighter in those short weeks. They don't exactly go crazy with game planning and whatnot, as well as the fact that I don't know, just both teams, the defenses are both aggressive and they can be good. The Cleveland Browns defense lets up a little bit more big plays, but that's because they play so aggressively and they're trying to get turnovers. And so Russell Wilson could throw some picks, and then the games kind of just a fluky, weird game can happen on Thursday night, especially between division rivals. So I just wouldn't touch it. I will say I did put in a big old fat props parlay between the players, but and I've been hitting a lot of those as of late, actually. So I'm kind of on a heater with that stuff. But when it comes to the games, I've been very, very average with those as of late. So not as much luck there. But I will say, going into the weekend, my favorite bet against the spread, I am going to go with the Lions minus 7.5 versus the Colts. Colts defense, one of the worst in all of football. You got the Detroit Lions.
Disgusting.
Yeah, Detroit Lions offense, just absolute juggernauts right now. I told you before we started recording, my only hesitation is we haven't seen the Detroit Lions defense go up against a running quarterback. I want to see how that looks for future prospects. As an Eagles fan, I want to see if a running quarterback gives their defense a little bit of trouble. I don't think it's going to be enough for the Colts to win the game because Anthony Richardson's just so inconsistent passing the ball right now, even though he did have his best game of the season last week, threw for almost 70% completion percentage, which is by far his best all season. But they still barely squeaked out a win against the Jets, who have been disgustingly bad.
So. Well, and Richardson kind of gives off the same vibe as a Jameis Winston. He could suck. Where you're get Flacco back in the game, and then you could be he's our guy.
Exactly. And that's why I kind of like the fact that that's why I feel comfortable with betting Lions minus 7.5. Is his upside is he goes absolutely berserk. Anthony Richardson, I should say, he goes berserk, and they're competitive in the game.
Yeah.
But like if he even has like his middling to like
they're getting
average
smashed.
or bad game,
Smashed.
they're gonna get smacked. Yeah. So I like the Lions to cover there.
For sure. The Lions, they're so fun to watch.
Oh yeah,
it's just
for
such
sure.
a
just clean. It's
yeah,
just so
it's
smooth.
Just,
It's just like people
such
are wide open all over the place.
Constructed instrument, and you're like, man,
Yeah.
they figured out the X's and O's
For sure. Yeah. I said, like, I don't know how many podcasts ago this was, but what's his name? Brian Johnson. Wait, no, not Brian Johnson. Ben Johnson. He is going to get the fattest blank check from a team all season. And it'd be curious to see, like, who do you think if like things were like as they were right this second, who do you think Ben Johnson would go to become a head coach? Like, I know nobody's like really been fired just yet, but like, I mean, people have, but like, do you have any inkling of who? I have a favorite spot right now that I'm thinking of, and like, if he goes there, it could get crazy.
Patriots?
I just don't think they're going to give up on Gerard Mayo after 1 year. I mean, I don't know. They kind of like rallied a little bit after he called them soft.
Yeah, true.
But like, still, I don't think they're going to give up on him after 1 year. But
where do you see him going?
I don't know if I even see him going here. But it would be very interesting if he were to go to the Bengals. If Zach Taylor gets let go because they just have this like super down year. And then bring that offense to Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And if that happens, they have to bring back T. Higgins. I feel like there's this like T. Higgins is a free agent after this year, and there's this inkling that like he's gone. But like I feel like they got to do whatever they can to bring him back.
I think you got to get Higgins, and then the rest of their income all has to go to that defense.
For sure. I feel like you sign T. Higgins, and then all of your draft is defense.
If they had an average defense, they'd be like, I don't know, maybe like 7-4.
I think they would be winning the AFC North.
Probably.
I think they could beat the Steelers. Yeah. Like because with that, how explosive that offense can be potentially, they can outscore a Steelers defense right now. Yeah. And then like you said, if the defense was just average, they could stop Russell Wilson once or twice.
Because like star power wise, that is just like probably the most stars on a team in the NFL. Yeah. If like the Lions have. I don't even know if you say all their guys are like stars.
Yeah,
they have more
I feel
players.
like if you line up a bunch of people and try to say like who are the Lion stars, they couldn't really name them, but like they could potentially do
like Jamar Chase is the man. Like simply, Joe Burrow has shown he can win, and he's Joe Shiesty. T. Higgins also same exact thing, and then there's literally 3 of them. Yeah, and they're disgusting.
And Chase Brown has shown to be
and then you add
very solid player as well.
Like you have some guys that can just help.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that would be a crazy spot if he were to go to the Bengals for some reason. Would be. But yeah, there's a lot of teams out there that obviously would love his help
for sure.
But he is going to get a big old fat check. Yeah, and he's going to get to pick exactly where he wants to go because everybody's going to be clamoring for his services. So, all right, that pretty much wraps it up.
Who finishes with the worst record in the NFL?
Worst? Ooh. Here's the thing. Panthers have been a little more feisty as of late, which I think is kind of dumb.
Two-game win streak.
2-game win streak. I don't like that for your franchise. Man, the Giants are basically tanking. They put in Tommy DeVito after benching Daniel Jones instead of putting Drew Lock in there, which was a very interesting decision.
Tough look on Drew Lock.
Yeah, well, so I don't think it's even like a thing. I don't think it's a talent thing. Really? I think they literally were like, what like gets our fans engaged as well as gives us the best chance to lose and get a quarterback. Fair. I think that's literally like, oh, let's go the Italian Tommy Cutlets route again and like get the Italians in the Northeast going again and in favor of the Giants again, as well as continue to lose. Yeah. Like I think it's like a win-win for them, like to get the fans kind of back into it because they know like Daniel Jones isn't going to take them anywhere and he's going to be cut and. They had to bench him because there was like some kind of injury designation. If he got hurt, he was owed like an extra $20 million or something crazy. Yeah. So they had to get him out of there. Like the Giants are in that, obviously. Like the Titans, I don't see them winning a whole lot more games going down the stretch. Who else stinks? I don't know. There's a lot of teams. Like honestly, like if you look at it right now, there's like a ton of teams that are like good, and then a ton of teams that are really bad.
In like the latest power rankings, the Panthers were 23rd. I was like, so there are that many teams.
That's what I'm saying. It's like there's so many bad teams and so many like good teams. There's like a very small like middle
average,
class this year. Yeah, it's super weird. So, you know what? I'm gonna say the Giants get it done. They're the one.
Bring it home.
Yeah, they're gonna bring it one. Yeah. They're gonna bring it home. They're gonna finally get themselves a franchise quarterback. Hopefully. I don't know. This draft class I'm not a huge fan of, so they might be meddling in mediocrity
probably
for like another like 8 to 10 years again.
Probably.
So I don't like the prospects for this season, so it is what it is. All right, that pretty much wraps it up. Appreciate you coming on once again. This is Hodge Burkhart and Logan Hill. Once again, follow us on all the socials, TikTok, YouTube, and just pretty much just follow.
We got a little rivalry going on.
We do have a little bit of in-state rivalry. That, This will be obviously the classic Thanksgiving matchup. Saturday. That'll always happen, so that'll be kind of fun going down. We'll have a little bit of might have a little bet on that one.
Exactly.
I don't know if I like the State's chances.
They both
they both kind of stink. Oh, that's kind of funny. But just follow on all the socials, and we will talk to you next week. See ya.
Peace.